Dust Haven, Kansas Territory, 1884. Mae O'Rourke's breath snagged in her chest as Hank Moran's fist clamped around her wrist, dragging her across the warped saloon floorboards. Men looked up, then looked away. Her knees barely held, pain flaring from the bruise blooming beneath his grip. And just before Hank shoved her toward the back door, Mae heard herself whisper a name she hadn't dared speak in 3 long years. Hank's fingers dug deeper, grinding bone against bone. Mae's breath stuttered. That soft, helpless click in her throat she hated more than any bruise. Whiskey slicked the floor beneath her boots as he yanked her forward. "Walk," he slurred. Her legs obeyed, only because refusing meant a blow she couldn't afford tonight. Fear curled under her ribs, sharp and metallic, a rusted thing she'd carried for years. Somewhere behind her, a man laughed. Another coughed. Coins chimed, chairs scraped. No one rose. No one said her name. Her throat burned. She wanted to whisper that name again, but fear shoved it back down. A memory flickered. Her mother's hand guiding a sewing needle, whispering, "You're not made for the world to use, Mae." But the world had used her anyway. Used, pawned, passed around like a bottle. Her vision blurred for half a second. Hank mistook it for weakness. "Don't go fainting," he barked, jerking her upright. Her shoulders screamed. She bit down on a cry. She'd learned long ago that men like Hank fed on the sound of pain. A handful of men watched, Sheriff Fox among them, leaning back like this was just another slow evening in Dust Haven. His gaze slid across Mae like she was furniture, not flesh. Something inside her tore, thin, invisible, quiet. She dug her heels into the floor. "No." Hank stopped. The room didn't. A few heads turned, surprised, not sympathetic. Mae wasn't the kind to speak. Not anymore. Hank leaned close, whiskey sour on his breath. "You don't get a no." Mae swallowed hard. Her pulse hammered. Then she lifted her eyes, straight into the faces of the men lining the saloon. Her voice came out hoarse, trembling, but it carried. "Doesn't one of you have a mother?" Silence thickened. Not a man stood. Hank snarled and dragged her toward the back door. Her body jerked with each step. The air grew tighter, hotter, though no fire burned in the stove. Then, a heavy boot step sounded behind them. Then another. Hank slowed and turned. Mae turned with him, breath shaking, just enough to see the shadow filling the doorway. Isaiah Cole, tall, dust-streaked from a long ride, hat low, coat unbuttoned, a black rancher in a saloon that didn't welcome his kind. He didn't look at Mae first. His eyes locked on Hank's grip. His jaw flexed. And Mae thought she heard something. Maybe her heartbeat. Maybe her mother whispering, "Someone will stand up. One day." Isaiah stepped forward, slow and steady. A man used to storms, not scared of them. Let her go, he said. A few men muttered. Sheriff Fox didn't move. Hank barked a laugh, squeezing Mae's wrist tighter. You don't get a say, Cole. This here's between me and my... She said no, Isaiah cut in. That's the end of it. The words hit Mae like a door slamming shut on a nightmare. Hank puffed up, blotched and angry. You want trouble? Isaiah finally glanced at Mae. Calm, steady, carrying a tired compassion she didn't understand. I'm not here for trouble, he said softly. Just letting a man know when he's crossed the line. Mae couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Hank shoved her forward. Isaiah shifted, stepping between her and the door, not touching her, just standing there like a wall carved out of quiet resolve. This ain't your business, Hank snarled. Isaiah's hand dropped to his side, not to his gun, just to anchor himself. Make it my business, then. A murmur swept the saloon. A black man saying that to a white drunk in Dust Haven. That wasn't risk. That was a death wish. Sheriff Fox rose halfway, hand hovering near his holster. Isaiah, he warned, don't start something you can't finish. Isaiah didn't look away. You heard her, he said. She said no. Mae's knees gave. Her breath trembled like she'd been running for miles. But somewhere inside, a warmth spread, the memory of safety. Isaiah angled himself toward her without breaking focus on Hank. You can walk out that door, he said, quiet and certain, or you can stay. But you choose, not him. Mae lifted her trembling hand, pressing against Hank's grip. He resisted, then faltered. Her determination startled him. His fingers loosened. Mae pulled free. Her steps toward Isaiah were clumsy, but they were hers. Behind her, a curse, a chair scraping, men stirring with the promise of violence. But Isaiah didn't draw, didn't threaten, just stood, just waited. And Mae O'Rourke realized she was standing for the first time in years, standing beside a man who didn't know her name, but still saw her worth. Her pulse thudded. That name she'd whispered earlier rose again, unsteady, not a name she feared, a name she mourned, a name she'd never spoken aloud in Dust Haven. Isaiah didn't speak again. He didn't need to. The weight of his quiet was heavier than any threat Hank could spit. Mae felt Hank's fury burning behind her like a furnace door kicked open. The hair on her neck prickled. Her pulse throbbed inside the bruise blooming around her wrist. She waited. For knuckles. For a shove between her shoulders. For the familiar sting of being punished for choosing herself. But nothing came. Only Isaiah's low voice, steady as a heartbeat. Walk with me. Mae hesitated, her feet rooted to the scuffed floor. Some old instinct, raw, coiled, terrified, warned her this could be another trick. Another man pretending decency until the door shut behind them. Her breath rasped short. Her ribs ached from holding it in. But Isaiah didn't grab her, didn't guide her, didn't even turn to look. He just waited. It was the waiting that broke her. Her first step wobbled. Her legs trembled like she'd been running too long on too little food. Every inch toward the exit felt like pulling free from barbed wire. But she kept moving. Behind her, Hank's boots scraped, violent, angry. "You think you can just take her?" Isaiah didn't turn. "I'm not taking her. She's walking." A mutter rippled through the room. Disbelief, irritation, and something uglier beneath it. A resentment that a black man had the nerve to say what any of them should have said first. Mae blinked hard against the heat rising behind her eyes. No tears. Not here. As she reached Isaiah's side, she felt Hank's stare burning her spine. Isaiah shifted, so slightly, angling his body just enough so she wasn't exposed to the open room. A small gesture. It hit her like a mercy she didn't know how to accept. They stepped outside. Cold night air slapped her lungs. Her breath shook as she pressed a hand against her ribs to steady it. Pain flared in her wrist, sharp, pulsing. Isaiah noticed. Of course he noticed. But he didn't ask. Didn't crowd her. He stood near enough that she felt protected, far enough that she could breathe. "You hurt bad?" he asked. 4 words. Quiet. Not pitying. "I'll live," she whispered. Her voice cracked on the last word. She hated that. Isaiah nodded, once. Slow, understanding more than she'd said aloud. His gaze dropped to her wrist. Mae lifted it instinctively, covering the bruise with her other hand. "Don't," he said softly. A single word. Gentle. But it shook her. For a moment she saw something in him. Not on his face, but in the tired slump of his shoulders. A heaviness. A history. A burden older than tonight. "Why did you step in?" she asked. Her breath thin. Isaiah exhaled through his nose. A heavy, weighted breath. Because he crossed a line. Men crossed lines every day in Dust Haven. None of them cared. She studied him. His eyes were dark. Not hard. Just worn. Like a man who'd carried too much for too long, and still chose to carry a little more. "Folks in there won't let that go," she murmured. "I know. They'll say you took me. I didn't. They'll say worse." Isaiah swallowed. The muscle in his jaw twitched. "I've heard worse." There it was again. That shadow inside his voice. Mae felt her stomach tighten. She knew wounded men, knew their ghosts, knew their echoes. A memory burst through, uninvited. A man screaming her name in the dark, begging her to run while boots thundered behind them. A night she survived only because someone else didn't. Her chest squeezed. She turned away quickly. "Where will you go?" Isaiah asked. She huffed a bitter breath. "Nowhere. Everywhere. Doesn't much matter. A woman like me doesn't get to keep places." Isaiah held her gaze. Long, steady. Then, "Come with me." Mae's heartbeat tripped. "To your ranch?" "Yes." "Why?" "You need a place, I've got one. And work if you want it. She stared at him. Men didn't say things like that. Men bargained, hinted, took. "You don't know me," she whispered. "You don't need to earn a place to rest." Her eyes stung. She clenched her jaw, fighting the tears crawling up her chest. "And what do you want?" she asked, voice barely air. "In return." Isaiah didn't blink, didn't shift. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. "Nothing." The word stunned her, empty of deception, empty of demand. Just nothing. But nothing was dangerous. Nothing meant traps. Her heart thudded painfully. "You expect me to believe that?" she rasped. Isaiah finally looked away, not embarrassed, just giving her air. "My father taught me a man stands guard," he said. "Doesn't take what isn't given." Most men don't think like that. Most men, Isaiah said with a sad breath, aren't worth thinking about. Mae almost laughed. Almost. The sound came out a shaky exhale. Behind them, the saloon door burst open. Hank's voice tore through the night, slurred, raging, like a wounded animal denied a kill. Mae tensed instantly, pain shooting through her ribs. Isaiah shifted, small, subtle, just enough so she stood behind the broad line of his shoulder. He didn't reach for his gun, didn't threaten. He simply stood. A wall. A choice. A man. Hank shouted something vulgar. But Isaiah didn't turn. His voice came low, just for Mae. "You walk with me now." And somehow, though her knees trembled, though her chest throbbed with fear, she did. Not because she trusted him, but because, for the first time in a very long time, she trusted herself enough to take the step. Mae could barely feel her feet beneath her as she followed Isaiah down the quiet street. The cold bit through the thin leather of her boots. The air scraped her lungs raw. Each inhale trembled. Each exhale carried a weight she didn't know how to set down. Behind them, the saloon noise faded, swallowed by distance. But Hank's voice lingered anyway, lodged in her ears. "You don't get a no." Her wrist throbbed where his fingers had crushed bone. She held it tight against her chest, hiding it from Isaiah, though her breath hitched every time she brushed the sore spot. Isaiah walked a step ahead, not pushing her to keep up, not slowing to make her small, just present, solid, like a man who knew how to walk through danger without letting it own him. After a few minutes, he spoke. "You riding or walking?" Mae flinched. "I don't have a horse." Isaiah nodded once. "Then you're on mine." He didn't offer a hand, didn't touch her, just said it like a fact waiting to be accepted. Her throat tightened. "I shouldn't go with you." "Probably not," he said. She blinked. "Then why ask me to?" His breath fogged the night. Slow, steady. "Because you need a place, he finally said. "And I've got one." Mae wanted to laugh, or cry. She wasn't sure which would come first. "Men don't give things away for nothing." "I'm not giving anything," Isaiah said. "I'm offering work. And a bed, that's all. Her stomach twisted. Work. Bed. Two words men had twisted into chains before. A memory cut across her thoughts. A coin pressed into her palm. A voice whispering, "Just smile, Mae. Be good." Her pulse spiked. She stumbled. Isaiah noticed. "You all right?" "No," she said, voice shaking before she could stop it. "But I'll keep moving." "That's enough." They reached his horse. Tall, patient, dark. Isaiah placed a gentle hand on its neck before turning back to her. "Can you climb up?" Mae tried. Her body didn't obey. Her limbs trembled. From hunger, from fear, she couldn't tell. Humiliation burned hot under her skin. Isaiah didn't sigh, didn't pity, didn't comment. He crouched slightly. "Put your foot here." She hesitated, expecting hands on her waist, a shove. Control claimed. But Isaiah's arms stayed still, only bracing, never touching. She placed her foot on his knee, pulled herself up, settled trembling in the saddle. Isaiah mounted behind her, but kept distance. One hand on the reins. Nothing else. His knee brushed her heel. That was all. "You ready?" he asked. No man had ever asked her that before moving her somewhere. She nodded. She wasn't ready, but she nodded. The ride began quiet. The rhythm of the horse matched the uneven beating of her heart. Cold wind stung her eyes. Her fingers dug into the saddle horn until her knuckles burned white. Isaiah's voice drifted forward. "You got anywhere else you'd go?" She swallowed hard. The truth scraped. "Not anymore." He didn't press, just let the answer settle. Something in the silence pulled the words from her. "I had a place once." Isaiah's posture shifted, subtle, attentive. "My uncle's, before he died. Before everything." Her breath shook. "I was supposed to leave town after that. But debts don't disappear when men do." Isaiah let the pain sit, not fixing it, not softening it. "Debts aren't flesh," he said quietly. "You're not something a man can win or lose." A lump formed in her throat. "Feels like I am." "You're not." That word again, simple, unadorned, heavier than the promises whispered in dark rooms. The horse slowed. They'd reached open country. The night felt larger, colder, freer. Mae held herself tighter. "You don't know what following you will bring on your head," she whispered. Isaiah's exhale trembled. For the first time. "I've got enough in my past folks already judge me for. You won't add more than what I carry." Mae drew a shaky breath. "What did you do?" The pause said everything. "Not enough," he answered. "Not when it counted." His voice cracked on the last word before he caught it. She felt it. Raw, hidden like a scar beneath clothing. She turned slightly. Is that why you stepped in? Part of it. What's the other part? Silence. Then, I don't stomach men hurting women. Not ever. A spark inside her. Small, trembling like a match struck in the dark. They rode another mile with nothing but breath and hoofbeats between them. Mae's eyelids grew heavy. Fear drained into exhaustion. Her head tilted forward before she jerked awake. You can rest, Isaiah murmured. I can't, she whispered. If I fall asleep, I see things. Isaiah hesitated, then spoke softly, the way a man might speak to a spooked horse, or a wounded creature that didn't know it was safe yet. No one's touching you, he said. Not while I'm awake. Her breath shook. Her eyes burned. She didn't dare lean back. But his words wrapped around her like a blanket she'd forgotten the feel of. Slowly, carefully, her shoulders lowered. Her eyes closed. Just for a moment, she heard her mother's voice again. Find someone who stands between you and harm, Mae, not someone who causes it. The horse's rhythm lulled her trembling, and for the first time in years, she slept without fear snapping her awake. Isaiah kept the reins steady. He didn't look at her. He just rode. Guarding. Mae woke to the faint sway of the horse and a warmth she didn't recognize at first. Steady, quiet, coming from Isaiah sitting behind her like a watchtower. For one suspended moment, she didn't remember Hank's hand crushing her wrist. Didn't remember the jeers, or the way men had looked through her like fuh. Then her vision cleared. Pain bloomed across her ribs, sharp, insistent. Her wrist pulsed with her heartbeat. Her throat felt scraped raw. And shame, old stubborn shame, crept back through her veins like it had never left. Mae straightened quickly, pulling herself away from Isaiah's steady presence. Her breath stuttered. Sorry, she whispered. You don't have to be sorry, Isaiah said quietly. His voice came from somewhere solid, somewhere that didn't bend under the weight of other men's expectations. It rattled her. She stared down at her hands, dirt under her nails, skin rubbed raw, the bruise on her wrist already turning dark. Every mark told a story she never wanted spoken aloud. Isaiah slowed the horse. We're close. Mae swallowed. The word "we're" struck her harder than she expected. She wasn't used to being counted in anything. When they finally stopped, Isaiah climbed down first, then offered his hand, not to lift, not to hold, just to keep her steady so she wouldn't fall. Mae hesitated. Something in her chest tightened, like a rope drawn too fast. I can get down on my own, she said. I know. He didn't move the hand away. The choice stayed hers. She placed her fingers on his palm. His hand was warm, rough with work, but the gentleness there hit her harder than any grip Hank had ever used. She slid off the saddle. Her knees buckled. Isaiah steadied her once, only once, then stepped back, giving her space. I'm fine, she muttered. You're hurt, he replied. I'm used to hurt. A shadow crossed Isaiah's face. Not pity, something sadder, something that mirrored her words in a way she didn't expect. "There's food inside," he said. "Water. A place to sleep." Mae stiffened. "This is where you ask for something, isn't it?" Isaiah blinked. Slow. "Ask?" "For payment," she said, throat tightening. "For whatever men usually want." Pain flickered across Isaiah's eyes, quick but unmistakable. "I didn't bring you here for that." "Then why?" Her voice cracked, sharper than she meant. "Because you needed a door without a lock on the inside," he said. "That's all." Something inside her cracked. Not loudly, not visibly. Just a hairline fracture beneath skin built on fear. "You don't know what happened to me," she whispered. "You don't have to tell me." "But you want to know," she pressed. Isaiah shook his head. "Only if you want to speak it." Mae looked away, but memories surged anyway. A hand in the dark, a drunken laugh, a debt marked on paper with her name instead of money, the crushing sound of a door bolted from the outside. Her shoulders shook once. She forced herself to breathe. Isaiah waited, steady as a fence post in a storm. Mae whispered. "My uncle. After he died, the man running his boarding house said he'd cover the funeral in exchange for me working off the cost." She swallowed. "But that's not what he meant." Isaiah's jaw clenched. Not at her, never at her, but at the memory of a cruelty he knew too well. "He passed me on when he got bored," she rasped. "Gambling tables, card debts, a bottle of whiskey here, a week's stay there. Men didn't even ask my name." Her fingers twitched against her skirt. "I thought I'd die in that basement last winter. I even prayed for it." The words came out flat, hollow, emotion scraped out long ago. Isaiah breathed in deep, as if taking some of that weight onto himself. "You're not a debt," he said. Mae let out a small, broken laugh. "Feels like that's all I've been." Isaiah stepped forward, not close enough to touch, but close enough she felt his warmth. "You're in my home now," he said. "And you're nobody's debt here." Her throat clenched. Nobody's debt. Nobody's property. Nobody's thing to trade. "Why do you care?" she asked. Isaiah rubbed a calloused thumb against his palm, a nervous habit she hadn't seen before. "Because men like the one who hurt you walk free too often. And because once, someone I loved needed help, and I didn't stand up soon enough." Mae heard the fracture in his voice, the same kind she carried. "What happened?" she asked softly. Isaiah shook his head. "Another time." Mae didn't push. They both carried ghosts. "So, what now?" she whispered. "You rest," Isaiah said. "Eat. Heal." His gaze softened. "Work if you want to. Leave if you want to, but no man will trade you again." Mae's heartbeat stuttered. Once, then again. She didn't remember the last time someone offered her something without trying to buy her after. And if I stay? Isaiah's answer was immediate. Quiet. True. Then you stay on your own terms. Mae swallowed hard. The words landed deep. Somewhere sore. Somewhere hungry. For the first time since her uncle's death, she felt a faint pull in her chest. Something like breath. Space. The possibility of choosing. Not freedom yet, but the first step toward it. Mae woke with a start. For a terrifying split second, she didn't know where she was. Her body jerked upright, breath punching out of her chest like someone had shoved her underwater. Her hands flew to her arms, expecting rough fingers, expecting a lock turning in the dark, expecting another man claiming something he had no right to. But there was nothing. Only quiet. A quiet so deep it rang in her ears. Mae's lungs trembled as she breathed in again, slower this time. Her ribs ached. The bruise on her wrist throbbed, reminding her none of this was a dream. She stared at her palms, scarred, tired, familiar, until her heartbeat steadied. She was alone, in a bed, with a blanket tucked around her. Something inside her twisted, confused by the softness. She rose carefully, every muscle tight with habit. Her feet hit the floor, cold, grounding. She waited for footsteps, a voice demanding she hurry, the sound of someone fumbling with a belt buckle. Nothing. Just her own breathing. She hated that she didn't trust it. Following the faint smell of something warm, Mae stepped out. Her stomach clenched, hunger burning like an ember she'd ignored for months. Isaiah stood near the kitchen table, sleeves rolled up, hands dusted with flour. He didn't turn when she entered. Didn't announce himself the way men usually did when they wanted to be noticed. "Morning," he said, voice low, steady. Mae swallowed. Didn't mean to sleep this long. You needed it. His tone held no judgment, no teasing, just fact. Mae's fingers curled into her palms. I should work. Do something. Isaiah looked over his shoulder, eyes soft but certain. You're not working on an empty stomach. Her chest tightened. No one had ever said that to her. Not with care. Not with patience. Not without strings attached. She sat slowly, uncertain if her legs would hold. The chair creaked. She flinched. Isaiah noticed, but pretended not to. That small kindness eased something she didn't know was clenched. He placed a plate in front of her. Simple food, but warm. Real. Eat, he said. Her hand shook as she lifted the fork. When she took the first bite, her eyes burned unexpectedly. She blinked fast, pretending it was the steam. Isaiah didn't sit across from her. He stepped back, leaning against the counter like he had nowhere else to be. Jonah'll be back soon, he said. He stays with Martha across the creek some nights. Your boy? Mae asked gently. My sister's, Isaiah answered. She died 2 winters ago. Mae looked up, something softening in her chest. I'm sorry. Isaiah nodded once, jaw tight. He's a good kid. Needs steady folks around him. Mae's stomach twisted. She set the fork down carefully. If my being here, if it makes things difficult for him. It won't, Isaiah said before she finished. He'll see you how you carry yourself, not how others spoke of you. The words struck deeper than she expected. Her breath trembled. People always see the worst first, she whispered. They see what they're taught to look for, he replied. That's different. Mae stared at her plate, fighting the sting behind her eyes. She didn't want gratitude to feel like weakness. She didn't want this peace to feel borrowed. But it did. Later, while washing dishes, she moved carefully. Every time Isaiah reached for something near her, she stiffened. He noticed, always noticed, and adjusted, stepping wider, moving slower, keeping his hands where she could see them, not to coddle her, to respect what hurt. When Jonah arrived that afternoon, Mae froze. The boy hovered in the doorway, dirt on his boots, curiosity in his eyes, not fear, not judgment, just curiosity. You're Miss Mae? He asked. Just Mae is fine. Uncle Zay says you're staying a while. Mae looked at Isaiah. He said nothing. If he'll have me, she murmured. Jonah shrugged. He keeps strays. Found a coyote pup once. Named it Trouble. Mae startled. A small, startled laugh breaking from her chest. Jonah grinned, proud. Isaiah shook his head. She's not a stray, Jonah. Then what is she? Mae tensed. Isaiah answered gently. Someone who needs a place to land. Her breath stuttered. She turned away so neither of them would see her eyes burn. The rest of the day passed in quiet rhythms. Mae swept floors, folded linens, helped Jonah sort nails into jars. Small tasks, but each one wrapped around her with the strange gentleness of normal life. Something she hadn't touched in years. That night, lying in the small bed Isaiah had given her, fear crept to the edges again. Fear that this was temporary. Fear that men like Hank would come. Fear that peace was just another loan she couldn't repay. Sleep refused to come. Footsteps outside her door made her jolt upright, body rigid, heart slamming against her ribs. Then Isaiah's voice came, low through the wood. I'm just checking the lamps, he said. Nobody's coming inside. Mae pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Isaiah waited a breath, then added, even quieter. You're safe here. A sound escaped her. Half sob, half breath, as she curled her knees to her chest. She didn't know if the words were true, but they were the first ones she wanted to believe. Mae woke to the sound of wood snapping, a sharp, violent crack that didn't belong to morning chores or Jonah's clumsy steps. Her eyes flew open. Her breath caught. For a moment she couldn't tell if she was still trapped inside some old nightmare, or if Hank had found her, or if the world was about to collapse the way it always had. Then she smelled it. Smoke. Thin at first, bitter, familiar in the worst way. Her chest clenched. Her fingers shook as she pushed up from the bed, heart pounding so fast she thought it might burst. She slipped into her boots, breaths short and ragged, and forced herself to the door. When she stepped outside, the cold hit her like a slap, but it was nothing compared to the sight ahead. Isaiah stood still, too still, shoulders stiff, jaw locked, body braced as if against an invisible blow. Jonah stood beside him, clutching Isaiah's coat sleeve with small, terrified fingers. Mae followed their gaze. Her knees buckled. A wooden cross, tall, crude, split down the center, burned in the ground at the edge of the yard. Flames crawled along its edges, snapping and spitting sparks. The heat licked the night air, but Mae felt only cold. Ice cold. Her breath vanished. Her ribs tightened until every inhale scraped like glass. She whispered something. Maybe a prayer. Maybe a curse. But it tore apart in her throat. Jonah whimpered. Isaiah's hand tightened on the boy's shoulder. "Inside," Isaiah said quietly. Jonah shook his head. "No, inside," Isaiah repeated. Mae had heard men command before, loud, hard, cruel. This wasn't that. This was a man holding his fear in both fists and refusing to let it break open. Jonah obeyed, running back toward the house. Mae stayed where she was, every muscle frozen. Smoke curled around her like fingers. Her lungs wouldn't work. Her vision spotted. She'd seen fire like this before. In that basement last winter. In the stairwell the night the door wouldn't open. In the flare of a match held too close to someone helpless. Her breath spiraled out of control. She clutched her own arms to steady the trembling. Isaiah turned then. Not to the fire. To her. "Mae," he said, voice low. "Breathe." She couldn't. Her throat closed. Her ribs barely moved. "Look at me," he said. She did, and the world steadied by an inch. He took one slow step toward her, not touching, not rushing, just enough to pull her focus away from the burning symbol behind him. "They're just trying to scare us," he said. Her voice scraped out. "Are they here?" "Not now." His jaw tightened. But they were. The truth hit her like a fist. Her vision blurred again. Rage, dread, old helplessness rising like smoke. "Why?" she whispered. Isaiah looked down at the bruised ring around her wrist. "Because you're here," he said, "and because of me." Her breath shattered. "They'll kill you. They might try." Something inside her snapped, not from fear this time, but from the crushing realization that she was the reason a man like Isaiah could die. "I shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "You didn't cause this," Isaiah said. "Didn't I?" "No." "How can you say that?" Mae rasped. Isaiah's gaze hardened. "Because men who burn crosses don't need excuses. They only need targets." His words struck deep. Mae clenched her fists, fighting the collapse inside her. But he wasn't done. "There's something you should know," Isaiah said, voice dropping lower, rougher. Mae's stomach knotted. Isaiah never spoke about himself unless pressed. Now he looked like a man deciding whether to rip open a wound stitched years ago. I've seen fire like this before, he said. A crowd outside my house, my wife inside. Mae's breath caught. Isaiah didn't blink, didn't look away. They told me to stay quiet, he said. Said it'd pass if I didn't fight back. I listened. His jaw trembled once, and the fire didn't pass. Mae covered her mouth. Her pulse thundered. Isaiah's voice cracked. Not loud, but enough to break something in her. I won't stay quiet again. Smoke stung Mae's eyes. Or maybe it was tears. She couldn't tell. A gust hit the burning cross, sending sparks flying sideways. Mae jumped. Her whole body tightened as if expecting hands, doors, screams. Isaiah stepped closer, not touching her, never crowding, but close enough that she could feel the steadiness radiating from him. You're safe, he said softly. She shook her head. You can't promise that. No, he said. But I can stand. Her throat closed. A sound escaped her. Half sob, half breath. She hated how weak it felt. Hated how much she needed those words. Mae, Isaiah said quietly. Look at me. She did. The fire cracked behind them, spitting sparks. But Isaiah's eyes were steady, dark, grounded. You're not alone, he said. The words broke her. She pressed both hands to her face as the shaking finally took over. Not from fear, not entirely, but because someone finally said the thing she'd prayed for in silence for years. Not alone, not forgotten, not abandoned. Isaiah didn't touch her, but he stayed. And sometimes, that was louder than any embrace. Jonah's cough started small, a thin, scratchy sound slipping through the wall before dawn. Mae jolted awake, heart pounding. After the burning cross the night before, her sleep had been shallow, her nerves pulled tight like old twine. The cough came again, harsher this time, breaking in the middle like something tearing. Mae threw on her boots and hurried down the hall. Jonah sat on the edge of his bed, arms wrapped around his stomach, little body shaking with each breath. His cheeks flushed too bright. His forehead shone with sweat. Mae felt her own throat close. Jonah, she whispered, kneeling beside him. Sweetie, breathe slow. He tried, failed, coughed until his small frame curled inward. Isaiah appeared in the doorway, hair still damp with sweat, chest rising and falling fast like he'd run from the barn. One look at Jonah and the muscles in his jaw went stone hard. How long's he been like this? He asked. Mae swallowed. I just heard him. It sounds like fever. Jonah coughed again. Harsher, and helplessness crawled up Mae's spine. Isaiah crossed the room, pressing a rough palm to the boy's forehead. His breath hissed through his teeth. He's burning up. Mae's stomach twisted. We need the doctor. Isaiah's silence said everything before his words did. He won't come out here. Mae froze. Because of me? Isaiah didn't look at her. Because of me. The words fell heavy. Jonah wheezed, fighting for breath between coughs. Each sound cut straight through Mae. She grabbed a cloth, dampened it, pressed it to the boy's face with trembling hands. Isaiah, she whispered, voice cracking. He's just a child. Isaiah didn't answer. He stood in the middle of the room, fists clenched, waging some quiet battle inside himself. It was the same look he'd worn in front of that burning cross. Fury trying to stay quiet. I'll ride into town, Mae blurted. No, Isaiah said sharply. You have to stay with him. If you go alone, they'll think I sent you to fetch the doctor, he said, voice low but tight. And they'll use that as reason enough to take a shot at me. Mae's breath shook. They'd hurt you for me asking for medicine. Isaiah looked at her now, really looked, and his eyes held the truth she'd been trying not to face. They're looking for a reason, Mae. Any reason. Jonah coughed again, smaller this time, weaker. Mae felt her insides turn to ice. Then what do we do? She whispered. Isaiah knelt beside Jonah. We treat him here. I've done it before. Winter fevers, creek chills. He's strong. But his voice quivered, almost too soft to hear. He'll pull through. Mae brushed the cloth along Jonah's cheek. The boy blinked up at her, eyes glassy. Miss Mae, he rasped. Yes, baby. Does it hurt to breathe? Mae's throat clenched. Just a little. But we're right here. Isaiah's hand hovered over the boy's shoulder, fingers shaking before he pulled them back. Mae saw it. Saw the fear behind it. The fear of touching his nephew when he couldn't promise healing. Let me get water boiling, he said. And herbs. He left the room. Mae heard the clatter of pots, the scrape of metal on wood, the hurried footsteps of a far wrestling with dread. Jonah curled closer to her, small fingers clutching her sleeve. Mae stroked his hair, breath uneven. Then she heard it. A whisper through the cracked open window. Two men passing by on the distant road, their voices carried thin on the cold morning air. Should have burned the whole place. Man like him. Got a white girl inside. Don't care what the sheriff says. One accusation, and he swings. Mae's blood ran cold. Every word stabbed under her ribs like a blade. Her breath suspended. Her heart thundered so loud it drowned Jonah's wheezing for a moment. One accusation. He swings. Isaiah would die, not for what he'd done, but for helping her. Her fingers tightened around Jonah before she could stop herself. The boy whimpered. Mae loosened her grip at once, whispering apologies, chest shaking. Isaiah returned with a steaming pot and herbs crushed between his fingers. Mae didn't tell him what she'd heard. She couldn't. Not with Jonah's life hanging in each shallow breath. Hours passed in fragments of panic. Cool cloths, bitter teas. Jonah sweating through shirt after shirt. Isaiah pacing like a caged storm. Mae whispering into Jonah's ear. Lullabies, old prayers, her mother's warnings, her mother's comforts. Near sunset, Jonah finally drifted into a fitful sleep. His breaths came shallow but steady enough that Mae dared unclench her chest for the first time in hours. Isaiah sagged in the doorway, exhausted. "We'll keep watch shifts," he murmured. Mae nodded, but her stomach twisted. Those whispers from the road gnawed at her. He'll swing. Because of her. Because she'd stayed. Because she'd let herself believe she could belong somewhere without bringing ruin behind her. "Mae, you should rest," Isaiah said softly. She shook her head. "I'm fine." She wasn't. She was coming apart. Isaiah placed one soft hand on Jonah's blanket. "He'll make it," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "He has to." Mae stared at that hand, scarred, strong, shaking with fear. The same hands that shielded her in the saloon, that guided her gently off a horse, that had never once asked a price. Hands that would be tied with rope if the town decided they wanted him dead. "Isaiah," she said, but her voice failed. He looked up, tired, but hopeful. That hope broke her. She couldn't let him pay for her life with his. Not again. Not another good man. Mae stood abruptly. Isaiah frowned. "Mae, where are you?" "I'm going for more herbs," she lied. "We're running low." "We have enough for tonight." "I need air," she said quickly. He stepped forward, worry carving deep lines in his face. "Mae, you shouldn't be alone after—" "I'll be fine," she cut in, trying to steady her breathing. "Please, just stay with Jonah." Isaiah hesitated. His eyes moved over her. The shaking, the pale lips, the tremor in her breath. Then Jonah coughed again, a fragile sound, and Isaiah turned back to the boy. Mae took the moment. She slipped out the door quietly, boots barely whispering against packed earth. Her breath fogged in the cold. Her heart pounded in her throat. She wasn't going for herbs. She wasn't going for air. She was leaving. Because if she stayed, Isaiah Cole would die. And she would rather run into the wilderness alone than watch another fire take someone because of her. She didn't look back. Not once. Mae moved through the dark like someone carrying her own ghost. Her breath came shallow, sharp at the edges, every inhale scraping her ribs. She pressed one hand hard over her mouth to muffle the sound of panic rising in waves, choking her throat. The house behind her felt like a heartbeat she was trying to outrun. Jonah's weak cough, Isaiah's tired voice, the whispers outside the window. One accusation, and he swings. The words gnawed through her skull. She reached the barn, fingers shaking so hard she fumbled the latch twice before opening it. The familiar scent of dust and old wood hit her in the face, usually grounding. Tonight, it felt like closing a door behind her forever. Mae crossed to the tack wall, boots dragging, knees weak from hours of fear. She grabbed the reins, the saddle blanket, then stopped, both hands trembling around the leather straps. Her body shook so violently she leaned her forehead against the wooden post. breath breaking apart. "You can do this," she whispered. "You have to. You have to go." Her voice was barely sound. She tried to pull herself together, tying the blanket with numb fingers. But every movement felt wrong. Wrong in her bones, wrong in her chest, wrong in the way her stomach twisted like it was trying to pull her back to the house she'd just left. But she forced her hands to keep moving. Because if she stayed, Isaiah would. A loose board creaked behind her. Mae froze. Her eyes snapped open. Her throat closed. She turned slowly, heart hammering so loud she couldn't hear anything else. Isaiah stood in the doorway. His chest rose and fell fast, breath harsh with exhaustion, sleeves pushed up, hands still stained with crushed herbs from tending Jonah. Fear, anger, hurt, none of it loud on his face, just a kind of stunned disbelief. "Mae," he said quietly, "what are you doing?" Her whole body flinched. Her voice cracked. She couldn't get the lie out. I'm going for more herbs." Isaiah stepped in, slow, steady, not blocking the exit, not looming, just present in a way that made the truth impossible to run from. "We have enough for 3 days," he said. "You know that." Mae swallowed hard. Her hand tightened on the saddle, blanket. "Then I need air. You're not dressed for a walk." She looked down. She hadn't even put on a coat. Isaiah's voice dropped lower. "You're leaving." Mae's throat worked. No sound came out. Tears burned instantly. Isaiah took one slow step forward. She stepped back. He stopped immediately. "I'm not coming closer," he said softly. "But you need to tell me why." Her fingers trembled so badly, she dropped one of the straps. It hit the floor with a soft, deafening thud. "I heard them," Mae whispered. "On the road." Isaiah stiffened. "They said if you make one wrong move, if they get one reason, they'll hang you." Her voice broke. "And I'm the reason, Isaiah." His jaw clenched. "Mae, no." She shook her head, tears spilling uncontrolled. "I won't watch another Mon die because of me." Her breath tore in and out, ragged, painful. "Not you, not after everything you've done." Isaiah's chest rose sharply. His eyes softened, but his voice stayed steady. "Nobody's dying tonight." "You don't know that!" Mae's scream cracked the barn air, raw, jagged, like something finally snapping. "You saw that cross. You know what they want. They'll kill you because you helped me, because you sheltered me, because I'm here." "Mae, you think I can sleep knowing that?" she cried. "Knowing Jonah might wake up to... Her breath splintered. She pressed both hands to her chest like she could hold herself together. "I can't let that happen. I can't." Isaiah took a breath that sounded like it hurt. "You leaving won't stop hate," he said. "It might save your life." "It'll break something in you," he answered quietly. something you fought too hard to hold on to. Better broken than buried, she whispered. Isaiah flinched. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Isaiah stepped forward. Not with force, but with heavy sorrow. He reached into his pocket. Mae backed up until her shoulders hit the stall door. Isaiah stopped again, hand open between them. In his palm lay the pocket watch, the same one with stand guard etched into its back. The only thing he carried from the father he couldn't save. He held it out to her. Mae's breath left her body. "Take it," Isaiah said softly. No, I can't." "It'll remind you," he murmured, "that you're worth standing for, even when the world says you're not." Her face crumpled. Isaiah's voice cracked. Just once. Barely audible. "And it'll remind me why I'm not going to let silence kill another soul." Cold wind slipped through the doorway, lifting her hair. The barn smelled like leather, fear, and something heartbreakingly gentle. Mae stood shaking, unable to move. Isaiah didn't push the watch into her hands, didn't close the space. He just waited, arm outstretched, offering the only piece of himself he'd never offered anyone else. Her knees weakened. "Don't do this," she whispered. "Don't make this harder." "I'm not," he said. "I'm giving you a choice." Choice. A word she'd lived most of her life without. Mae squeezed her eyes shut, breath trembling like a wounded animal. When she opened them, Isaiah's hand was still there, steady, waiting. She reached out. Her fingers brushed the cold metal. Her breath hitched. She curled her hand around the watch. Isaiah exhaled, a slow, pained sound. The same moment boots crunched outside. Voices, low, angry, too many. Mae's head snapped toward the barn door, terror exploding through her chest. Isaiah turned, shoulders squaring, his body shifting from sorrow to quiet fury. "They're here," he said. Mae's pulse roared in her ears. Isaiah stepped into the doorway, not blocking her, not trapping her, just placing himself between her and the danger coming. "Stay behind me," he murmured. The last thing Mae saw before the shadows reached the barn was Isaiah's back. Broad, steady, unflinching, standing guard exactly the way he'd promised. The boots hit the dirt like war drums. Mae's breath jammed in her throat. Shadows moved outside the barn. 3, 4, maybe more. Isaiah's body shifted in front of her, broad shoulders tightening, his breath going low and controlled. The way a man breathes when he knows he's outnumbered but refuses to step aside. Eli Stanton's voice cut through the dark first. Smooth, cold, self-important. "Evening, Cole. Heard you been sheltering what ain't yours." Mae stiffened, nails digging into her palms. Her pulse thrashed in her neck. Isaiah didn't turn. His jaw flexed once, a hard line under the dim lantern glow. Behind Eli came Deacon Pratt, Bible tucked under his arm like a weapon, and Hank Morin, eyes drunk, jaw swollen from where Isaiah hit him at the saloon, a grin twisted with vengeance. Hank spat at the dirt. "I told you she was trouble." Isaiah didn't move. "State what you want." Eli stepped forward, boots stopping inches from Isaiah's. "We're here for the girl. There'll be a hearing in town. Folks need answers." Mae's stomach flipped violently. Hearing. In Dust Haven, that meant humiliation dressed up as law. Isaiah's shoulders rose on a slow inhale. Tension coiled in his neck. The way a man steels himself to swallow a blow so he won't swing first. "She's not going with you," Isaiah said. A murmur rippled through the men. Hank let out a slurred laugh. "Look at you, thinking you get to argue." Eli's eyes narrowed. "If she's here of her own will, she can speak to that at the church. If she's not—" His smile sharpened like a blade. "Well, then this becomes a different sort of visit." Isaiah shifted, not away. Forward. His presence pushing back the dark like a wall. Mae's heartbeat hammered so hard, she pressed a trembling hand to her chest. She wanted to run, hide, scream, anything but stand there shaking while men circled like wolves. Isaiah's voice came low, steady. "This ranch isn't your jurisdiction." "No," Eli said calmly, "but the town's safety is." Hank barked, "She belongs to me. That's the safety we're talking about." Isaiah's jaw tightened. So sharp, Mae heard his teeth clench. "She belongs to herself," he said. For a brief second, Mae forgot how to breathe. Eli's expression hardened. "Bring her out." Isaiah's spine went rigid. "No." The men shifted, hands brushing pistol butts, boots grinding dirt. Tension buzzed like lightning. Mae's pulse roared in her ears. Isaiah glanced back, for the first time. Just a second. Just a flick of his eyes. But in that second, she saw everything. Fear, fury, regret, a past he couldn't outrun, a vow he was trying not to break. Then he turned back to the men. "Fine," Isaiah said. "She'll come." Mae felt the ground fall away beneath her. Her breath stopped. Her limbs went numb. The pocket watch nearly slipped from her fingers. She choked out, Isaiah?" He didn't turn. "You men will escort us to the church," he continued, "where she'll speak in front of witnesses, and the town can hear the truth straight from her." Hank grinned triumphantly. "Knew you'd fold." Mae's vision blurred. Fold. The word stabbed her like a knife. Isaiah stepped sideways, gesturing Mae forward, not touching, not forcing, just guiding with the smallest motion of his hand. She felt sick, betrayed, confused. Her knees shook so violently she nearly stumbled. Her voice escaped before she meant it to. "You're giving me back to them." Isaiah froze. The wind died. The barn held its breath. Slowly, very slowly, he looked back over his shoulder. His eyes burned, not with anger at her, but with something deeper, something without a name. "No," he said quietly. "I'm dragging this fight into daylight." But daylight didn't feel like salvation to Mae. It felt like a gallows. The men moved closer, circling like they'd already won. Jonah's weak cough echoed in her head. The burning cross flickered behind her eyes. And now Isaiah, her one safe place, was handing her over to a mob pretending to be justice. Her throat closed, her vision throbbed. "I trusted you," she whispered. Isaiah flinched like she'd struck him. Eli clapped his hands. "Let's go then." Isaiah stepped to Mae's side, not touching, not crowding, but the space between them felt suddenly like a canyon. Mae couldn't look at him, couldn't speak, couldn't stop the shaking crawling up her spine. Isaiah leaned close, voice quiet, meant only for her. "You'll see why," he whispered. But Mae couldn't hear reason through the echo of her breaking heart. She walked forward because her legs moved, not because she chose to. Isaiah walked beside her like a shadow, steady, silent, unreadable. Behind them, Hank spat in the dirt. Ahead, the church bell began to ring, a summons, a warning, a trap for both of them. The church doors shut behind them with a heavy thud that echoed straight down Mae's spine. Voices rose instantly, sharp whispers, judgment dripping from every syllable. Mae stood in the center of the room, Isaiah beside her, though she couldn't bring herself to look at him. Her hands shook so badly, she hid them in the folds of her skirt. The pocket watch in her palm felt unbearably heavy, like guilt forged into metal. Hank swaggered forward, pointing at her like at stolen property. "There she is, the girl who ran off with a Negro rancher and lied about it." A ripple of murmurs. Heat flushed Mae's face. Her throat locked. Deacon Pratt stepped between them, raising his Bible like a verdict already written. "The town has questions, child. Best you answer truthfully." Isaiah's shoulders tightened. Even without touching him, Mae felt tension coil through him like a drawn rope. Sheriff Fox cleared his throat. "Let's settle this quick. Girl goes back to her legal holder till a proper arrangement is—" Isaiah moved. Not fast, not loud, but the shift in him drew every eye in the room. He stepped forward, placing the pocket watch, his father's watch, on the table between them. The sound of metal hitting wood cracked through the silence like a gunshot. His breath trembled once before he spoke. "My father died in a fire," Isaiah said quietly. "A fire lit by men who said they were keeping order." Mae's heart stilled. Isaiah lifted his gaze, meeting every pair of eyes in turn. "They told me to stay quiet, told me not to interfere, told me it was best for everyone. So I did. I stayed quiet, and I buried the only family I had." Hank scoffed. "What's that got to do with—" Isaiah cut him off without raising his voice. "When I walked into that saloon, I heard a woman say no. And I heard a man ignore it. His hands curled into fists. That fire from years ago came back in my throat, and I refused to stay quiet again." A hush fell. Eli Stanton sneered. "Touching speech. Doesn't change that she belongs under town authority." Mae felt something break loose inside her. Shame, anger, fear, all swirling like a storm. Before she collapsed under it, Isaiah spoke again. She's not property, not debt, not a prize for men to trade. She stands here because she chooses to. He looked at Mae then, really looked. His eyes held no apology for bringing her here, only a plea for her to see the truth beneath his choice. Mae's breath stuttered. Deacon Pratt lifted his chin. And what exactly is she choosing, Mr. Cole? The room waited. Every breath held. Isaiah didn't answer the crowd. He didn't even look at them. He looked only at her. Mae chooses where she stands, he said softly, not where men push her. The church seemed to pulse around her. Mae's legs trembled. Her chest tightened. Her ribs barely expanded. The fear was still there. The shame still clawed. But beneath it, a faint, trembling ember. Choice. Isaiah had dragged her into the light, not to hand her over, but to hand her the floor. Mae swallowed hard, her pulse hammering, and for the first time the crowd waited for her, not the other way around. Mae felt her heartbeat slam against her ribs so hard it hurt. The church felt too small, the air too thin. Dozens of eyes bore down on her, curious, judgmental, hungry for a version of her that fit their story. Her knees weakened, her throat closed. Isaiah stepped half a pace back, creating a space beside her, a space she could either step into or run from. Mae chooses where she stands. The words pulsed in her ears. Her mother's voice whispered through memory, soft, worn, trembling but stubborn. Don't let the world decide your worth, Mae. Don't let any man speak for you. Mae swallowed hard. Her legs moved before courage fully formed. One step forward, then another. A hush fell so sharp it felt like a blade scraping the room clean. Mae tried to speak. Nothing came. Her hands shook so violently she clenched them together, pressing the pocket watch into her palm until the metal bit her skin. She raised her chin. When I came to this town, she began, voice thin, I was hungry, tired, hurt. She forced air into her lungs. And every man who looked at me saw something to use. A few murmurs. Hank smirked. Eli frowned. Mae pressed on, her voice growing stronger by inches. Hank didn't ask if I was willing. She steadied herself. He didn't ask anything. He grabbed me because he could. Hank sneered. Liar! Isaiah's voice cut through him. Let her speak. Mae's chest tightened. She continued. You didn't hear me say no, she said quietly, because none of you ever cared to listen. The room stiffened. But he did. She turned, just a fraction, toward Isaiah. He heard me. Something cracked in the crowd. A shift, unease, the faintest waver of shame. Mae faced them again. I'm not a debt, not a trade, not a burden you get to pass around. Her spine straightened. I'm a woman who survived things none of you asked about. Her breath trembled, but her voice held. And I choose where I stand. Silence swallowed the church whole. Eli cleared his throat. And where is that, Miss O'Rourke? Mae didn't look at the banker. She didn't look at Hank. She looked only at Isaiah. With the man who stood between me and harm when every one of you turned away. A ripple moved through the pews. Shock, shame, surprise. Hank lurched to his feet. "She's lying for him." "Enough," Sheriff Fox snapped. But his voice carried no true authority, only the weight of a mom realizing the tide was turning. Nora Briggs rose from a pew. "The girl speaks true." Her voice cracked, then steadied. "And Isaiah Cole has more decency than the whole front row of this church." Mrs. Red Elk stood next. "Let the woman choose her home." More murmurs. More agreement. A wave, small at first, then gathering strength, rolled through the room. Mae exhaled shakily, knees nearly giving out. Isaiah reached toward her, but stopped an inch short, offering presence without pressure. The sheriff finally spoke, voice unsettled. "Mae O'Rourke, you are free to choose where you live. No man here has claim over you." Hank cursed under his breath, fury twisting his face. Mae steadied herself and whispered, barely audible, "I choose the ranch." Isaiah's breath left him in a soft, stunned exhale. Mae felt something deep inside, something old, bruised, twisted, uncoil for the first time in her life. Not healed, but no longer silent. And this time, when she stepped toward Isaiah, she did it without fear. A full year later, Mae still woke some mornings with her hand curled around the pocket watch, its metal warm from her skin, the engraving worn softer from her thumb tracing "Stand Guard" in the dark. But the fear that once clung to her ribs like a second spine had loosened. Not gone, not forgotten, just quieter. Jonah's laughter drifted from outside, bright and sharp in the cool morning air. Mae smiled without thinking. The boy had grown stronger, taller, his cough gone, his steps surer. Sometimes he followed Isaiah, mimicking every move. Sometimes he sat with Mae, learning letters on scrap paper. Today he leaned against the doorway, grinning up at her. "Uncle Zay says you're slow with breakfast." Mae raised an eyebrow. "Does he now?" Isaiah appeared behind the boy, one hand resting lightly on Jonah's shoulder. His smile was small, but warm enough to settle something deep in her. "He's telling tales," Isaiah said. "I told him you earned the right to sleep late." Mae pretended to huff, but her chest softened. "I earn very little around here." Isaiah's gaze dropped to her stomach. Just a glance, gentle and reverent. "You earn more than you know." Mae's heartbeat stumbled. She rested her hand over the small swell beneath her dress. Life. Fragile, stubborn, growing in a place she once believed she'd die before belonging. She stepped outside with them. The new wooden sign Jonah and Isaiah had carved hung at the gate. Cole and O'Rourke, Stand Guard Ranch. Her throat still tightened every time she looked at it. People from the valley, white, black, native, came and went freely now. Folks who once whispered now nodded respectfully. Hank Moran was gone after too many debts and too few friends. Eli Stanton kept his distance. Sheriff Fox learned neutrality had a price. Mae inhaled slowly as Isaiah walked to her side. He didn't touch her waist, didn't take her hand. He simply stood there, close enough she felt his warmth. "You still worry?" he asked softly. "Every day," she admitted. Isaiah nodded, eyes soft. "So do I." She looked up at him. "But we're still here." "We're still here," he echoed. Jonah tugged Isaiah's sleeve. "Tell it again," he demanded. "The story of the saloon." Isaiah chuckled. "All right, but it starts different this time." Mae tilted her head. "Different?" Isaiah turned to the boy. "The drunkard thought she was easy," he said, voice low and steady. "But she was the bravest woman I ever met." Mae's eyes burned, heart swelling until she had to look away. Jonah grinned. "And you stood guard?" Isaiah glanced at Mae. "I did." Then softer. "And she did too." Mae reached for his hand. Her choice, her pace. And he took it gently, their fingers threading like roots learning to grow in the same soil. For the first time in years, Mae didn't feel borrowed. She felt home. When we look back on Mae and Isaiah's journey, it reminds us of something many of us learned the long, hard way. The heart can be wounded, but it can also be rebuilt with patience, kindness, and the courage to stand for what's right. Their story isn't just about danger and rescue. It's about the quiet strength it takes to choose hope again, even after life has taken so much. Maybe you saw a piece of your own story here, a moment when someone stood up for you, or when you found the courage to protect someone you loved. And if you felt something while listening, comfort, pride, or even a little ache, know this: you're not alone. These Western tales aren't just about the Old West. They're about the timeless spirit of compassion that still lives in all of us. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your experiences and wisdom mean more than you know. Please share a comment below. I read every single one. And if you'd like more stories of courage, dignity, and Wild West love, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. Thank you for spending this time with me.